Now, most fly fishing historians consider Theodore Gordon the father of American dry fly fishing. And rightfully so. He was born in Pittsburgh but spent most of his adult life up in New York fishing the Neversink and the Beaverkill and the Willowemock up in the Catskills. And I had the privilege of fishing his covered bridge pool on the Beaverkill this past summer. And wow, what an experience that was. Now, Gordon was in his prime in the late 1800s, and he may have been the first American to popularize dry fly fishing, but he didn't invent it. That honor goes to some of our British friends across the pond, and one of these gentlemen was George Selwyn Marryat. And like everybody at the time, up until the mid to late 1800s, he learned to fish with wet flies. Then he spent some time in the Army in India and Australia, and then finally settled in Hampshire in 1874. And it was about this time where fishermen started getting interested in the dry fly. Now keep in mind, hooks up until this time didn't have eyes on it. They just whipped a small piece of gut to the hook and tied that to their leader. And this gut was heavier than what we're used to today, so this was kind of problematic for small dry flies. So the solution was to come up with an eyed hook. Now eyed hooks have been around for a while, but they were really bad quality and they just never caught on. That is until Marryat, working with a guy named H.S. Hall, designed a lighter hook with a better bend and an eye that actually worked. So by now, it's the late 1800s and Marryat has a few popular dry flies to his name. And he's helping a guy named George Holland tie and sell them in his shop on these newer and lighter hooks, and they do really well, and that's when dry fly fishing really starts to take off. Now the two most popular flies to his name are the Quill Marryat and the Little Marryat, which is the one I'm going to tie for you today. Now it's not a difficult pattern, and when you look at it today, you'll think it's not that special. There are a million patterns out there just like it. And you'd be right, there really are. But this one just might be the first of its kind. So this 146-year-old pattern was pretty revolutionary, and George Selwyn Marryat just might have come up with what is the most historically significant dry fly there is. It's one that truly shaped what fly fishing is today. I think you're going to like it. So there we go in the vise, a Little Marryat. A pretty simple looking pattern, but certainly a historic and very classic fly. Now sizes for this are 10 to 16. I'm going to go in a size 10 standard length barbless dry fly hook. And the thread is a medium to dark brown. I'm using a 70 denier. I'm going to catch it in up front and leave it maybe a fourth of the way back. And the first thing we're going to catch in, some natural duck slips. Just these right here, matching slips from a left and right feather, convex sides together so they splay out. And what I'll do, grab them by the tips so that the bottoms splay out, and now I can spread them on either side of the hook. Kind of measure your height. They are pretty high, so maybe even a little bit higher than that. Okay, that should work right there. And maybe 30 degrees angled back, but grab them, the slips and the hook with your material hand, pull some extra thread out, put a couple of loose wraps right around it, and now just try to keep them on top and put a tight wrap. And then let's go with a third wrap. It's a little bit tighter still, and they're wanting to spin around the hook on me, which I'm trying to avoid, but we'll fix that in just a second. Okay, so that's fine right there. What I will do next, I'm going to reel my thread in a little bit and lift these up and put one wrap right up under them, one or two, to just not necessarily prop them up yet, but kind of. So you see that right there? Okay, so at the end we want them perpendicular to the hook. Now here's what Bates did in his 1950s book Flies. He says tie these wings like this. Just grab the bottom pieces right here and pull them on either side of the thread. And this takes a little bit of dexterity. Kind of pull the proper wing forward and then pull the bottom slips back and then bind these down right behind it. So I didn't get them all right there. I will on that second wrap. Okay, so it's kind of messy, but this is, what it looked like in his book. So keep these forward and then these slips right here going back. And this helps build a little bit of bulk to maybe get a better taper on the fly. But you're going to have a little bit of stubs right here to trim. And you do want to make sure these stay, split up. So grab your bodkin if you need to and just kind of keep these separate. And that looks fine right there. We'll go ahead and take our thread to the back, to the bend of the hook where we're going to catch in our tail. And the tail on this is pretty sparse. It's either cream or a light brown hackle fibers or spade hackle fibers. And the old English way of doing this, they were very long. I mean, sometimes 1.5 to 2 times the length of the body. So we'll keep it pretty long right there. That might not be 2 times the length of the body, but it's still a pretty long tail and pretty sparse. Now you might have some curlies up here with the butt ends of these hackle fibers. Don't worry about it. Just bury them a little bit and then take your thread right to the back. We're going to dub a fur body on it, so put a little wax. And I'm going to use a gray rabbit for this. And I'm going to dub it on here pretty thin, but kind of a long noodle. 2.5 to 3 inches should get us up there to right behind the wing. Okay, that should be fine right there. Now the hackle is the same light cream or ginger hackle fibers, dry fly hackle. And I'm going to go, almost 1.5 times the hook gap. And what we might want to do here is back our thread just a little bit onto that body and catch it in so we can get 2 wraps behind it and then 2 or 3 in front of it. Now, I'm not sure how the original was tied. In Stetzer's book, it was pretty heavily hackled, but in the history of fly fishing in 50 Flies, it was very sparsely hackled. So I'm not sure exactly what's correct. I'm going to lean toward the sparser side, or maybe just pick a happy medium. I'm going to try to get 2 wraps behind it and then maybe 3 in front. We'll see what that does for us. Okay, let's catch this off right here and see what our head is going to look like. That's really about as much hackle as I want. And I've got a little bit of bear hook showing up front, kind of old style Catskill flies. This isn't truly a Catskill fly, but that is probably where it was first tied when it came across here to the state. So a lot of old timers probably did leave this little bit of bear hook up there for the turley knot. Okay, so let's go ahead and whip finish it. And let's snip this excess right here and make sure we can get these upright wings really sticking upright. And I think we have, for the most part. They're sticking up like we want. Just be careful, the more you handle them, the more they're gonna break up on you. But I think we're good to go. Don't need much cleanup on this one, just a drop of head cement and this thing's ready to fish. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care and we'll see you next time.